Hello and welcome back to Curiosity Mine. I have for some time now been meaning to start a series of videos in which we look at books on subjects that are close to this channel's heart and review them for their scientific, their historical and their entertainment value. So it was awfully convenient that I was recently contacted by CSIRO Publishing, who asked me if I'd like to receive a review copy of a new children's book to look at on this channel. So with that, welcome to the first episode of the Curiosity Mine Book Club, The Opal Dinosaur by Yvonne Mes. Yvonne Mes is a children's author who has written a handful of children's books, many of which are aimed at educating children about aspects of Australian life and culture, which is pretty cool. She also has a YouTube channel on which she reads and reviews children's books, so she's probably better at this than I am. So this is a children's book about dinosaurs, specifically about dinosaurs found from opalized fossils at Lightning Ridge, New South Wales, Australia, and specifically, even more specifically, about Fostoria dimbangunmal, which is sort of a medium-sized herbivorous iguanodontid dinosaur. As the book explains, Fostoria was found in a pretty significant bed of fossils representing a small group of individual dinosaurs who all died together. I made a video a while ago about Fostoria featuring Dr. Phil Bell from the University of New England and Dr. Elizabeth Smith from the Australian Opal Centre, which you can see here. So this book is aimed at children ages 5 to 9 and it features a really interesting story format and some gorgeous illustrations. The story is great. So the first thing I want to say about it is that it's unconventional and quite brave for a story in a children's book in that it uses time in an unusual way. It sort of sets up its own rules for effectively the afterlife of a prehistoric animal, and it really targets the reader's emotions to tell a compelling story in only a handful of pages and really make some strong and valid points that help to raise awareness about the work that paleontologists do to research and preserve dinosaur fossils. The story follows the little dinosaur on a journey from life with its herd to an attack from a ferocious predator, the theropod lightning claw, which is also from Lightning Ridge. Check out lightning claw right here. And then after the little dinosaur and its companions are unfortunately killed as a result of running from lightning claw, we begin the very long journey from fossilization, starting in the Cretaceous period, all the way to the present day. And our companion on this journey is the ghost, the spirit, the essence of the little dinosaur, represented as a glowing opal dinosaur that just waits patiently alongside its bones for someone to take an interest. It's sad and compelling, and it's a great way of anthropomorphizing the little dinosaur and really attaching emotional significance to its death and its preservation. Eventually, and that's a big eventually because Fostoria is buried for about 100 million years, the bones are discovered and the process of identification and classification and naming can finally begin. Along the way we meet Bob and Greg Foster, the opal miners who discovered Fostoria. We learn a little bit about opal mining, and after some paleontological back and forth, we finally get to see the relief on the little dinosaur's ethereal face as it's recognised for what it is and becomes part of the bigger story of Australian dinosaurs. The story deals with life and death pretty bluntly, which is kind of surprising and refreshing for a book aimed at 5 to 9-year-old readers, but it's also smart and very honest about it. Life and death are part of reality and can't be ignored, and it's kind of implicit in a story about dinosaurs that the ending is not always going to be a happy one. I'm from the generation that suffered through the emotional turmoil of the land before time, so trust me, kids will get it and they'll learn something from it. The narrative device of following the spirit of the little dinosaur through the eons and seeing its reaction to being discovered and appreciated after all that time kind of takes the edge off the death and the loss, so it's all good in the end. The story does a wonderful job of recognising the First Nations people of the area, both in their long history of living on and protecting the land on which Fostoria was discovered, and also their being acknowledged in the species name, Fostoria dimbangunmal. And An even more complex theme that the book touches on is the inevitable destruction of fossils in the search for precious opal, and the importance of preservation and donation of fossil material when it's found. We've talked about this a lot on this channel. Opal miners look for opal. The clue's in the name. Sometimes they find opalized fossils along the way, and those fossils often have an immediate and measurable dollar value solely because of their opal content. And once they're cut into gemstones, there's no evidence remaining that they were ever opalized fossils at all. So historically, a huge amount of Lightning Ridge's opalized fossil record has been lost to opalized fossils that have been cut and polished and never researched for their scientific value. It's just the reality of gemstone mining. Fossils are a byproduct, and it's only in relatively recent years that an emphasis has been put on the value, both monetary and scientific, of opalized fossils from Lightning Ridge. And this story touches quite nicely on that subject, and I hope may leave a lasting impression. It's actually a really good little reference volume. It contains some great information for anyone interested in dinosaurs, and it doesn't particularly sugarcoat or simplify any of it. There's a great explanation of the leading interpretation of opal formation, and also the relationship between common opal, or potch, and precious opal. These are subjects that are often not covered succinctly or accurately in even more detailed scientific literature. The story of Fostoria's discovery by Bob and Greg Foster, and the studies by Dr. Phil Bell from UNE Armidale, and the Australian Opal Centre's role in preserving the fossil pieces as part of their collection is all quite accurate, and it's told in more detail than I honestly would have expected from a book for children, and it's all the better for it. There is also a timeline on the inside front cover and in the back cover that puts relevant events in the story into perspective. I love a good timeline. And there are also a few pages of reference material about dinosaur species found in the book, the Lightning Ridge area, the fossilization process, and the role of opal miners in the discovery of opalized fossils, which is awesome. Curiosity Mine is on Patreon. Patreon is a service that allows you to directly support your favourite creators to allow them to continue making the content that you love. If you enjoy these videos and you think Curiosity Mine deserves it, head on over to patreon.com/curiositymine, where you can find more information on how you can support the channel directly. If you do, you'll get your name on this list of awesome people who are supporting the channel already. So head to patreon.com/curiositymine or curiositymine.com/Patreon if the other one bothers you, and see what you can do to help support the channel. But for now, let's get back to the Opal Dinosaur. The story is illustrated by Sylvia Morris, who is an Australian illustrator living in Germany who has a background in mathematics. The illustration style in the book is really quite sophisticated, with compelling and likeable character designs and just enough scientific accuracy to be accessible without being tedious or boring. My favourite illustration in the entire book is this one, which shows the ghost, or the spirit, of Fostoria laying forlornly on a shelf in the storeroom of a museum alongside its own bones, waiting for someone to care enough to look at the fossils and figure out what it is. And it's a really emotional image for a couple of reasons. First, obviously, it's the image of a ghost, of a dinosaur that's tethered to its mortal remains and is waiting patiently for someone to find it and care about it, which is just intrinsically sad, especially when you consider that the poor thing's already waited 100 million years before being filed away in a box in the dark storeroom for just a little bit longer. But it's also a particularly emotional image for anyone who works in or works with the realities of paleontology, because this image is quite symbolic of the scientific process, which for many, if not most, fossils involves sitting in a box waiting for someone to care. Although when I say someone to care, I really mean someone to have the funding and research capacity to study them. So it's actually an illustration that hits quite hard, and I really appreciate it. I'm really happy that Sylvia Morris dedicated an entire page in a children's book to what is basically a picture of a boring, dusty storeroom with the lights off to draw a little bit of attention to the realities of paleontology. Also, friend of the channel, Dr. Phil Bell from the University of New England Armidale makes an appearance, and I've got to say that the likeness is uncanny. There are a few illustrations which hit quite close to home. There's a depiction of opal mining, which is absolutely delightful with the windlass and the smoko caravan. And this image showing the showroom at the Australian Opal Centre is so familiar to me because I know that cabinet full of dinosaur fossils and I know that little glass cube of items that Phil is looking at. This room is an actual place that I've spent countless hours in, and here it is, represented as a cartoon environment in this story universe. It's so cool. I've been informed that Sylvia Morris, the illustrator, used some of the information in my videos about Fostoria and Lightning Claw as inspiration for the artwork in this book, which is amazing, and thank you. As per the credits in the book and information on Sylvia's website, the artwork is also heavily influenced by the paleo art of James Couther, who created these amazing reconstructions of Fostoria. And I'm also guessing that the reconstruction of Lightning Claw by paleo artist Julius Chutogny was also integral to the illustration of Lightning Claw in the Opal Dinosaur as well. It's great to see collaborative work in this kind of medium, as well as a sort of shared universe of agreed upon concepts about what these ancient creatures look like. So when I started the idea of the Curiosity Mine book club, I figured I'd mostly be talking about much older books that could have errors in them that have crept in over time, as well as out-of-date research that's no longer considered correct, and things like author bias and motivation. This doesn't really apply to the Opal Dinosaur, as it's based largely on very recent research, which is as accurate as anyone can know right now. And apart from a desire to pass on knowledge to a younger generation, I think we can safely say that author bias and specific motivations are probably not relevant here. So again, this is something that will have more relevance for older books, where we'll talk about how those books have influenced later publications, where they might get referenced, any additional works that have built on them, and things like that. As the Opal Dinosaur is very new, it's not really in a position to have a legacy yet. If we go backwards in time though, the story of the Opal Dinosaur is based on Phil Bell et al. Fostoria dimbangumal, a new iguanodontian from the mid-Cretaceous of Lightning Ridge, New South Wales, Australia, which was published in the Journal of Vertebrate Paleontology in 2019. In case you can't tell, I think this book is really cool. It's a really nice version of the story of Fostoria's fossilization and opalization and eventual discovery and naming, with quite a lot of scientific facts along the way. Also, acknowledgement of the First Nations people of the area as custodians of the land on which Fostoria was found, and of course huge credit and appreciation to Bob and Greg Foster for discovering the fossilized remains and getting them to the right place to be studied, identified, named, and made a part of Lightning Ridge's prehistoric history. If you'd like to get your hands on a copy of the Opal Dinosaur, you can purchase it right now from CSIRO Publishing. The link is in the description. Let me know in the comments if you like this format as well, and whether I should continue to review books into the future. There's quite a few of them, so it could be interesting. This video was made with the support of CSIRO Publishing, who sent me a review copy of the Opal Dinosaur. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to Curiosity Mine on YouTube, and maybe even supporting the channel directly through Patreon. The links are all in the description. And thank you for watching.